Hi, fellow gamers. It's no mystery that our industry has many problems. It's not a controversial thing to say. The damn thing is in crisis mode, constantly. From developers with no job stability whatsoever, even in the indie department, for which, speaking of, big companies like Microsoft keep on swallowing small studios and closing them down, proving that it's not all about just making good games that are Game Awards worthy. You will succeed critically, but you'll still get shafted. Crunch is also something that's become all too common. There's little to no unionization and thus no collective bargaining and workers' rights. And before you say it, yes, also the consumers are affected by this, like a lot, because there are so many anti-consumer practices that it is laughable.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
And I'm not just talking about the price of video games or consoles, but the fact that companies go out of their way to lock you out of your devices, break your device and games, they take them away from you, and with the declaration on the death of physical media, you don't know what you own, and them shoving products to our faces that they are inevitably going to be patching later, and then still they try to nickel and dime you through microtransactions. The whole thing is a mess. Therefore, it is such a pleasure for me to be able to talk about the good things that happens once in a while in this industry. Case in point, Hollow Knight SilkSong.
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
The copium is over, people. It is here and I'm happy, but let me come out clean about something. As of recording this right now, I haven't played the game just yet, okay? I bought it on release, okay? Despite it being one of the few exceptions where I actually would have pre-ordered and recommended others to do the same if I could. I haven't had the chance to do it just yet because there are other projects that I need to edit that some people rightfully have been calling me out for not having finished yet, so I'm trying, people. Just let me talk about the good stuff first. At long last, Team Cherry released Hollow Knight SilkSong on consoles and PC all around the world. Or at least they tried to. Be it one of the very few times in Steam history where the site was so very busy with all of the purchase requests that it completely broke down. Some savvy folk picked it up on Humble Bundle to code, right, that it could then redeem on Steam, but even then there were some too much activity that even redeeming it was impossible. And even further, some were met with the misfortune of Humble Bundle running out of keys. They literally ran out of material IRL or digital. It's keys. Now, if you were a real gangster and went on GOG, first and foremost, up top, you would have likely been fine playing your game just watching other people pushing and vibe ad nauseum, leading me to actually ask the very first question of the new gaming 911. Where were you when SilkSong launched? I was on my phone at home, buying it through the Steam app. Thus, I did not contribute to this behemoth, this tiny behemoth, to reach over 500,000 players few hours after it launched. Like, my god, not even a Helldivers operation could achieve this level of democracy. You know what the best thing is about this? It was only $20. The power of indie, baby. Made by three guys. Three guys made this. I cannot explain to you how happy I am about this. Like, obviously, I'm kind of biased because I love Hollow Knight, I like Metroidvania, and the first game was one of my favorites of all time. And I might be one of those people who did contribute to the first title reaching an all-time peak of like 88,000 players last month. But I am mostly so because regardless of what people tend to say about games, I and many other people just want them to succeed, especially when they're built around honest practices. Like was pointed out here by Pyranocean here on Twitter that no pre-order, $20, I'm sorry, dollars, I'm too stuck with the Westworld terminology here, crashes almost every single stores, no review copies, which is an exceptional thing to do because, let's be honest here, our favorite content creators can have massive sway on our opinions. Like, I'm personally fine with it if the product is good, and even better if the product is trash, as long as the creators go out of their way to ensure and be very clear that the game sucks. And also, it alleviates us with the issue of, let's say, IGN giving the game to like a person who hates 2D Metroidvania to play and review the game. Because that has happened. Breaks 500k players on Steam alone in hours. SilkSong has annihilated the AAA game industry. Now, I want to add one thing here, which is completely anecdotal here by a friend of mine who is close to beating the game. Must be wonderful being single. The game has little, if no bugs whatsoever. Technical ones. You get my meaning. The game truly has set a precedent, and really, an indie game taking out Valve's and many other storefront servers has to be one of the greatest compliments to give to a dev ever. And even more so is the fact that pirates, like here on the r/piracy subreddit, which pointed out that the game was already being cracked like 15 minutes after it was released, which is obviously because first, Team Cherry likely didn't put much in the way there. It is DRM free, was already on GOG on day one, which by the way had regional pricing, meaning that there are some people who likely got it for even cheaper than $20. Team Cherry was likely very confident with the game that they were going to be putting out there and knew that piracy will not have severe impact on the sales of the game, a point that the AAA industry might want to learn from, making it so that even the people who tend to yar their way to every single release actually bought the bloody game. Like, this is what you want to have. And of course, it's no surprise. We are not talking about a CEO being involved here to pay, no shareholders to pay. They just give players an amazing game for dirt cheap. That sound was my exclamation point. Like, come on, it's been determined a long time ago that piracy is an accessibility issue, not a genuine desire to avoid paying for a good product. People stop pirating movies and games when they got accessible with streaming services such as Steam or Origins. Yeah, even Origins, okay? Let's be totally honest here. Or Epic Games. That's why we now have services that make sure that you are not overpaying for subscription services that you don't need, because it has now taken a turn. We are now experiencing streaming services becoming convoluted and enshittified, while the gaming industry is a mess of unoptimized slop, DRMs, price hikes, and of course, monetization nightmares. And this is not to completely shit on the AAA industry and or other developers out there, because there are plenty of good games, even AAA, that I keep on telling to people are good, and where people are spending, myself included, on stuff like cosmetic or expansion. The Hitman trilogy, IO Interactive, I'm guilty. Big companies can't garner good favors if only they act accordingly. Where they lose me, however, is when they start acting shitty. And this is the part of the video that if I've done my due diligence in making a wonderful thumbnail of me being like, angry. Like, we don't do cringy soy jacks or anti-woke faces here on this channel. It's all me. And I could have brought a red tunic today. God damn it. And if you're wondering, hey Jack, do you have a red tunic? Of course I do. Why are you surprised? This somewhat shady behavior comes when articles like this one from Polygon are being written, which does contain a bit of nuance and comes from, I would suspect, a genuine place, yet still kind of sets a weird precedent to the actual discussion at hand with regards to SilkSong, because it says here that the gaming industry deserves more lead time before SilkSong. It is of course talking about how it is that most of you will know that certain games are being released at certain time of the year, like the summer is really very much overtaken by certain genres, and big studios always have a tendency of wanting to avoid releasing the games at the same time as others. And the same thing then also occurs here for the indie scene. There are some indie devs rightfully were worried that their games were going to be overshadowed by SilkSong and thus had to act accordingly. Now, with regard to this one here, the article goes in a lot of discussions with regards to the first announcement from 2019, the copium that we all went through. Hints in 2022, then 2023, and more delays and so on and so forth, which is kind of funny because SilkSong has also experienced a few let's not say a few, a lot actually, a lot of negative reviews coming from China, basically review bombing the game, because of some horrible localization made from Chinese native who, incredibly enough, were found to have leaked information about the game sometime earlier, which resulted in the perception of the game over there turning into some kind of reverse Mobius. But hey, if we look at the Hollow Knight store page right now, it is back to being very positive, so yeah, it'll be fine. But here he's talked about certain games, like one that I actually very much cared about here, Baby Step, that I was somewhat looking forward to, developed by Walking Sim Maestro Bennett Fodey, who had to delay it for 2 weeks. Some who have shifted their game to September 15, and an action roguelike called Megapunk has been now set to release in September 18. But the thing that I personally am not super fond of is the statement that they make here at the end of the article. And it says the following here. But in the years since Hollow Knight first broke indie game containment, arguably revitalizing an interest in the subgenre, and not so arguably inspiring countless clones, not to mention literally millions of fans, Team Cherry attained great power. Now here's one for the class. What's the other half of that phrase?
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Now, obviously hinting to the responsibility that Team Cherry should have to warn people ahead of time before releasing the game, which I think is a very weird thing to do. They are an indie company of 3 people, okay? They can release a game whenever they see fit, and they did not shadow drop this. And in the point of even shadow dropping something, that can be beneficial for certain parties. It doesn't mean necessarily that something is going to be doomed, even if it has a massive fan base. Case in point coming actually from the AAA industry. We had this very year the Oblivion Remastered, a game that I quite enjoyed because it maintained all of the glitches and things and weirdness that the original had, with a new visual upgrade and certain quality of life stuff that were added to it. That game released around the same time as Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and they benefited of each other. It was shadow dropped, they benefited highly from each other, and for a very long time the 3 best-selling game of the year were none other than Monster Hunter, which is now very much reaping the unoptimized seed that is so, Oblivion Remastered, and Expedition 33. Expedition 33, which did something that I think is a bit more important to have in this conversation than anything else, being that it actually kept the industry in check. A reminder of what the industry might want to do. And this was something that was also manifested in the pricing. As an example here through this article by Eurogamer, is Hollow Knight SilkSong's cheap price a problem for other indie games? Devs and publisher weigh in on the impact of it all. And see, this game was released for $20, and granted, depending on where you are, it could be cheaper. If you were in Mexico, that was likely lesser, or if you were in Australia, likely a lot more. But the point is that Team Cherry could have hiked the price of this based on the popularity of the IP now, the freaking massive fan base that he has. They could have capitalized a lot on this, but they decided not to. Even here was pointed during the article that SilkSong honestly should cost $40, and I'm not even joking, posted developer RG Lake, who worked as a composer on I Am Your Beast and directed rhythm adventure Unbeatable. I won't go as far, it continues here, saying that I won't go as far as to say it's bad, but it will have an effect, and not all of those effects are good. And I kind of get where it's coming from, because we've had this discussion before, similarly to the time with Baldur's Gate 3, remember? Where people were talking about, oh, is this now the new standard that we need to apply to everything? Every single RPG now needs to have cinematic level of dialogue and cutscenes that are super lengthy. Do we all need to adopt a plan of early access to make sure that our fan base is going to help us? Like, we talked about this before, and the answer is no. Even when it comes to pricing, you don't need to price your thing specifically at the same as SilkSong. No, you don't need to necessarily have 15 or whatever, what is the standard now, 11 hours in length of content to play to the game. You don't need to have certain functionality. It's not that. You can price your game as what you want. And I'm not saying this at all to minimize the scale of the operation itself. I know that it is difficult. As they pointed out in the Polygon article, there are even established ones, established studios and developers kind of have an issue with this because it can affect quite a bit. And some have a rather, let's say, nuanced approach to responding to this, with the example of Mike Rose here, who writes the following. The founder of indie publisher No Robot, who's saying that the pricing is fascinating and tricky thing to manage. He'd long been an advocate of higher prices, but recently he adds, I think the economy of games has been shifting, and people who aren't actually releasing games don't see it or realize it. As he continues down here, people have less money now, so you have to set yourself up to hopefully be that one game they buy when they have money, and if you are, a higher price is actually a bit off-putting, and I kind of get it. And especially when part of the reason of why this game was so successful was due to the previous game that was established here. And a great example is taken here with Citizen Sleeper 2. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I have not played the sequel to Citizen Sleeper. The first one was pretty great, wonderful sci-fi game, which of course absolutely is a different genre completely. But as pointed out here, the success of it was extraordinary. I don't know how financially successful it was, but I know that just like games like, let's say, Disco Elysium, people very much loved the narrative of it, and it was a critically acclaimed. But yeah, I find it hilarious just how ridiculously meme this thing has becoming. Like, sorry for the decade-long delay. That would be $20 here from No Signal. They're on the part of Rockstar. Please buy our games at $199. We spent the last 7 years carving the pores into Lucia's left ass cheek. Our employees missed the birth of their own children, so the mod texture on Crack Dealer 31's shoe looks just right. Please give us that $199. Yeah. Like, I'm not discussing that there are games that deserve more money. There are obviously some people who have bigger teams out there that are putting a lot more effort into creating more quality content and thus want to be able to provide fair wages to their employees. And of course, also perhaps have some money back if they decide to have some a better and or bigger project in the future. But a game like this being super successful, releasing like this, is just one massive way of telling the bigger industry to cut back on the greed. And it's wonderful. I wish Team Cherry's massive success if they decide to engage in other ventures and expand this universe. I want to dive a bit more into the lore of Hollow Knight whenever I get to finish the game actually myself. But yeah, I really wanted to talk about something that is actually good and perhaps also some of the few aspects that were somewhat sour about it. But yeah, anyways, like the video if you did like it, and wish you all to have a wonderful day. Play SilkSong. Bye.